Welcome back to the show. We touched on it a bit in the big story. Let's expand upon it now. NFL free agency well underway, even though nobody can sign officially until Wednesday. Always happy to bring in our good friend, returning champion, Matt Verderame, SI, NFL Insider, to hang out with us. All right, kill the music. Give me your top line view of day one of unofficial free agency.
I mean, not that this is stunning, but just a ton of money going all over creation. I think it was like $1.3 billion were doled out on Monday. Listen, some teams like the Raiders and Titans who had money, you expected them to spend. They did. I think they were probably the two most active teams. The Saints were pretty active. The Commanders were pretty active. But, listen, I thought overall there were only a few contracts that I really looked at and said, man, that's a lot of money. It's a lot. I mean, look, happy for him, but Boye Mafe, 3 years, $60 million with Cincinnati. He had 2 sacks last year. Jalen Phillips, 4 and 120. Jalen Phillips never had more than 8 sacks in a season. He's had 2 really, really bad lower body injuries in his career. Like, thrilled for the players, but those are huge, huge gambles. And then I guess I would also say, too, look, I thought Linderbaum would get paid a ton. I thought he would be in the 20-ish, 21 area per year, which would have reset the market because the prior record was 18. To get $27 million a year, fully guaranteed, by the way, like 3 and whatever that is, 84, fully guaranteed, or 381, is just unbelievable. So, listen, I thought a lot of teams had good days. I think of all the teams that had a bad day, probably the Ravens, honestly. I mean, Linderbaum out. I feel like the Giants signed half the Ravens team. Elodie Gilman went to the Chiefs. They lost a lot. The Ravens lost a lot of talent off that roster on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants lost Bellinger, and then they get Likely. I felt like they upgraded, obviously, there with Isaiah Likely coming in. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, because you do a fantastic job with the Matt Verderame show over on Patreon as well, and I know you talk a lot of Chiefs. Give me the view on Kenneth Walker, getting this 3-year deal, and obviously what it adds to a Chiefs team that's been one of the worst rushing teams in the league for what feels like forever.
They had to. They had to sign either Walker or Etienne. And look, if you talk to people in that building, I remember dating back to early December. During the season, texting with people at Arrowhead and hearing, we can't continue to do this. We are blowing open huge holes and nobody can hit them. It was a source of major frustration inside that building. All you need to know about the Chiefs' run game last year was they had 3 runs of over 20 yards last year, and 2 of them were by Xavier Worthy and Patrick Mahomes. They just can't run. They could not run. Walker gives them that explosiveness, that home run hitting ability. He can catch the ball a little bit. They needed somebody back there to take the pressure off Mahomes. Mahomes has never had an 1,000-yard back.
That's staggering. That's staggering to think about.
Look, I did this research yesterday because I didn't know if I was going to write a column and I ended up not having to. But in 21 playoff games in Mahomes' career, 21 games, they have had 2 100-yard rushing performances from a player, none of which have come since Super Bowl 54. And he has led them in rushing 5 times. But they can't run. They've never been able to even remotely run the ball around. So I'm not surprised. I thought they would go after and get one of those 2 guys, and they wasted no time. Walker was one of the first announced signings of the day.
Sam?
Matt, so I want to delve into the Chiefs. There are a bazillion different angles you can take on this team, but real quick on the Walker thing, a ton of rumblings, obviously, over the last couple of weeks of the Chiefs being in on the Jeremiah Love sweepstakes, right? And potentially moving up in the draft because of how good of a combine he had. Do you think this takes them out of the running, or are they still going to try and bring in Jeremiah Love and run a dual backfield with both of those guys?
Would be hilarious to watch. Would be unbelievable. Just the Chiefs turning into a wishbone offense. No, I to your point though, it's a legitimate question. I think, I don't think they'll do that just because right now, things can change. We're sitting here on Tuesday morning. There's a lot of free agency to go. Right now, their 2 biggest needs are edge rusher, number 1, and number 2 is probably receiver because Rashee Rice is not coming back after this year. I don't even know if he's playing this year, but if he plays this year, he's not playing next year in Kansas City. They've got Worthy. They really like Tyquan Thornton. They brought him back late last night in a 2-year deal. But they need a legitimate top-end receiver. They have not had a 1,000-yard receiver since Tyreek Hill. So they need somebody, and obviously a wide receiver. Kelsey's not it. I think if Carnell Tate's there at 9, they're going to have a hard time turning him down. Like, if Carnell Tate's sitting there at 9, I think Mahomes is going to jam the phone lines that war and be, you are taking this guy. I think they want to get back to where they can just score 28, 30 points a game and tell Spagnuolo, hey, look, hold them 3 times and we'll outscore teams. But yeah, I think that edge rush receiver, Reuben Bain, David Bailey, Tate, Lemon, I think that's right now more likely at 9.
Well, yeah, I mean, with Reuben Bain's arms, you might be able to trade back and still get him. But Matt, real quick, you mentioned Tyreek Hill. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was a week ago, time's flown by over the past couple of weeks. He had the news of his release with Miami. Do you expect, I know there's a ton of people online talking about how much nostalgia there'd be there. Do you think there's a realistic chance Tyreek Hill plays for the Chiefs next year?
I think it's unlikely. He still needs to have his LCL surgery. Like, he hasn't even had that yet. So I don't know if he's playing for anybody next year. I mean, maybe he's one of the one way I could see it, Sammy, is if it's one of these deals where he comes back for like the last 5 games of the year and the playoffs, and the Chiefs just say, you know what, sure, we'll sign it for 2 months. Now, I'm not being facetious. I'm not kidding. I don't know that Brett Veach would ever sleep if Rashee Rice and Tyreek Hill were just going out and hanging out. I mean, that, like, there's been enough off-field stuff between those two guys. I think Veach would have his phone on, like, DEFCON 1 every second of his life while those two were in the building. I mean, it's been one thing after the next with Rice, and obviously Hill has his things off the field that we all know about. So part of me genuinely wonders, like, would the Chiefs do that? Would they really do that? But, look, the Chiefs have never been a team to shy away from that. I mean, it's not a credit to them. That's the merit, in my opinion. But the Chiefs have always been willing to kind of overlook a lot if it means that you're on the field and talented. I just don't know that he's going to be healthy this year.
Matt Verderame's hanging out with us from SI, does a terrific job, NFL Insider, also the Matt Verderame Show over on Patreon. There's more to get to with him, winners and losers from day one of NFL free agency. I'm interested to get his thoughts on a team that we haven't gotten into yet. We talked about the Seattle Seahawks losing Kenneth Walker. What about the Patriots? We'll get to him next. All right, continuing the conversation with Matt Verderame. SI does a great job on the NFL. Talked some about the Chiefs and their wants and needs and moves that they've already made with Kenneth Walker. You talk about winners and losers. Mentioned the Ravens, losing everybody to the Giants on day one of free agency. What were the Patriots doing? Like, what's New England up to here? Because it didn't feel like it was all that much.
No, it was surprising. I thought they'd be one of the more active teams. And, look, they brought in Reggie Gilliam, who I actually really like. I think Gilliam's a really nice player. He'll give him some oomph in the backfield. They brought in Elijah Vera-Tucker at guard. Now, look, Vera-Tucker's talented, but he's hurt a lot. Like, can he stay on the field? I mean, that's kind of the big question with Vera-Tucker. I thought they would add a weapon on the passing side of things, and they didn't. And listen, I think some of the money for some guys out there is not. Alec Pierce, I think that contract is just astronomical. So I don't blame New England for not going anywhere near that. But yeah, I thought, New England, a couple guys are still out there. Guys like Romeo Dobbs, somebody like that. Like, he's not going to have 1,200 yards probably, but he's a good player. I was surprised. They let Tonga go, who's one of their D tackles inside. Not a pass rusher, but a really good run stuffer. He went to Kansas City. I thought they would be more. Now, they were really active last year. Last year, they were one of the teams that just spent like crazy, and it worked out for them, obviously. I thought they would do more to shore up the offense, maybe add an edge rusher, and they didn't. You're right. I was surprised that they were as inactive as they were on Monday.
Matt, when you look at, you mentioned the numbers that Pierce commanded, right? You look at the contract that Mike Evans gets out west in San Francisco, right? What do you make of the current price of wide receivers just in the general market?
That it's gotten to a point that I think a lot of these teams are better off just drafting a guy, truthfully. I mean, and because we've also seen a shift in college where teams now throw the ball more than ever in college. I mean, when I was a kid, it was a handful of teams that threw the ball, and then everybody else ran and ran and ran because the quarterbacks sucked. We have better quarterbacks now. Teams throw the ball better. The receivers are more polished. If I'm a team that needs a receiver, like for an example, I think Buffalo, even though they traded for DJ Moore, they probably still need another receiver. If I'm the Bills, I'm just drafting Denzel Boston or Casey Concepcion or one of these guys. Like I'm not giving Darnell Mooney $15 million. Like, I'm not doing that. Like, why? What up? The only receiver out there right now that I'd be like, okay, like Dobbs to me is a good player. He's legitimately like number 2 receiver. He can go out, play, he can run the full route tree. Evans, look, love Mike Evans. Mike Evans is entering his mid-30s in 3 years, $60 million.
Gonna ask you about him, yeah.
Like, I know there are a lot of people, including my buddy and colleague Connor Orr, thinks it's the best free agent signing of the day. And look, maybe it will be. You're giving a guy $20 million a year who's coming off of a hamstring plague season, everything. Like, it's a lot. And the funny thing is, like, these running backs that are top tier guys, they're paid like wide receiver 3. I mean, it's crazy. But I think that's why more teams are being aggressive at running back, because it's like, what? I'd rather pay this running back who's going to have 1,500 total yards and 10 touchdowns over this receiver who's going to have 600. But it's the market has gotten wonky, and Alec Pierce is a good player, but to get $30+ million a year. I mean, I like Alec Pierce, but what? I mean, that just seemed. I actually think Michael Pittman Jr. Quite honestly, I think I'd rather have him. I was not surprised because you hear all these rumblings, but I still think it's crazy he got the money he got.
Trey Hendrickson, thoughts on sort of where he fits into this sort of free agency frenzy that everybody's talking about right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, the one thing that's scary if you're Hendrickson is sometimes in free agency it's not always even about who the best player is, but like how quickly you can get a deal done. Jalen Phillips, to his credit, mentioned him earlier. His agent heard 4 and 120 and was like, guess what? Deal. Done. Let's lock that in immediately, right? Owe getting $100 million. Like, there are guys who are on the market who are just, they're getting paid instantly. And once that money's gone, it's gone. And all these free agency dollars start drying up. And with Hendrickson, I think everybody around the league figured like, okay, probably 3 and 100, something like that. He might still get it. But teams are, look, a lot of people thought Dallas was going to be the team. Well, they traded for Sean Gary. So they're probably not in. Is a team like the Bears, do they make sense if that price comes down a little bit? The one thing that's hard with Hendrickson is he's over the age of 30. And he's coming off of a little bit of a down year. I still think he's an excellent player. But, once those huge dollars start coming off the board, it's tough. Because when you think about it, okay, so a team like the Commanders, the Panthers, they were obviously willing to spend really big on edge help. The Chargers with Mac to a degree. But how many teams can afford him? Like, how many teams can afford him? How many teams have the need? And also, I believe he's 31. If you're a team that's not good, even if you have the money and the need, who cares? You're not signing him. Like, for what? He's 30 some odd years old. You're not going to do that. So I'll be very interested. Like a team, I mentioned them just now, like even like Buffalo. If I'm Buffalo, I'd be like, hey, can we make this work? Because to me, the biggest problem the Bills had in the playoffs is they can never get a pass rush, ever. Like, now they're going to a 3-4, and so maybe you say, well, but like teams play sub packages all the time now. Buffalo, the Bears, teams like that are teams that if I'm involved in the edge market, yeah, I want to know what can I get him for $250? Can I do that? Because if I can do that, I'm in.
Matt, we talked earlier about all these teams who had a ton of money coming into free agency and doling out left and right? The Titans and the Raiders come to mind. You obviously, covering the Chiefs as closely as you do, are very familiar with the Raiders. We assume they're going to get Mendoza. We know they have Genti. We know they have Bowers. All this money that they spent, can the Raiders be competitive next year?
I hesitate to say yes, only because I've watched the Raiders for 25 years, just not figure it out. Look, I like to hire Kubiak, and I'm curious to see how Mendoza plays. Mendoza, I think in a lot of quarterback classes is like the third or fourth guy off the board, and that's not to say he's not good. It's just he's not your typical number one guy who you're like, oh, that guy's just this absolute slam dunk and he's going to be an all-pro and everything else. Listen, I love the signing of Linderbaum. I don't even care that they overpaid for him because they have so much cap space, it doesn't really matter. Defensively, Nakobe Dean, they add him, they revamp, they re-signed Kuntz, they brought in Quay Walker. Like, I still think in the secondary, they're a disaster, and I have no idea who's rushing the passer outside of Malcolm Kuntz. Like, I don't think they're going to be very good yet next year. But to your point, I think they've at least raised the floor of the team where they're not going to be a total embarrassment. Where like last year, you looked at them and just went, oh my God. Like, I don't feel like that's the case. I feel like they will, assuming Mendoza can play, they'll at least be, maybe a 6 to 7 win team.
Matt Verderame, SI, does a great job. Check him out also on the Matt Verderame Show over on Patreon. Always appreciate you, my friend. Be well.
You got it. No problem.